if you get a chance and we got enough time, ask me please how I ended up spending a weekend in Johnny Bench's bed. Okay? Fred came out earlier, so I'll come out. If you ask me in the Q&A, how was it that right in front of my wife, I'm going to come out with this. How it was that I ended up spending a weekend in Johnny Bench's bed. True story. I tell you. Thank you, folks. Worst trade in baseball history. People always ask, like, when you were a bat boy, just like with Fred, when you're a bat boy, you get to know any of the players. You know, I was such a short-termer that I really didn't get to know on an ongoing basis many of the guys, except for Ernie Broglio. He was the nicest guy in the world. He kind of took me under his wing. For the next few years after I was a bat boy, whenever the Cardinals and then the Cubs came into New York, where I was living, I would go down to the hotel and I'd look up Ernie Broglio and he'd take me out to lunch and get me tickets to the game. And so I maintained this nice long-term relationship with Ernie. And then in 1967, 66, he got sent down to the minor leagues. 67, he was pitching for the Buffalo Bisons, for those of you around here. You remember this? Broglio was a Buffalo Bisons starting pitcher for the season 67. And that was the year that I turned 17 years old, and my driver's license turned into a 24-hour-a-day license in New York back in the day. And I looked up in the sporting news, and the Bisons were playing in Syracuse, New York that weekend. And I convinced my parents to let me have the car this day, my 17th birthday, to drive upstate and find Ernie Broglio. So I drove up, looked up the hotel where the Bisons were staying, knocked on Broglio's door, and he took me in, and we went out with his roommate, who's a guy named Dom Zaney, for anybody who really knows their trivia. And so at one point he said, well, where are you staying tonight? And I said, I was going to sleep in my car. I'm 17 years old. What am I going to do? I'm going to sleep in my car in a rest area on the highway. He said, no, you can't do that. I'll find a room for you in the team hotel. So we went around the team to the hotel, meeting the other players and asking if anybody had an extra bed in their room. Some of the guys on that team were Jake Wood, for those of you who remember that name, Jimmy Stewart, not the actor, but the outfielder, and Don Zimmer was the manager of that team. So I'm meeting all of these guys, and Broglio keeps asking, anybody got a bed? And finally he meets a guy whose name some of you know, Steve Barros. Okay? Steve Barros, who became a manager, a major league manager, said, yeah, I got an extra bed in my room. My roommate just got called up. So you can see where it's going. I spend the weekend, spend a couple of nights in Barros's room, and go out to the ballpark with the team, ride the bus and everything. As I'm getting ready to leave, I say to Steve Barros, so by the way, whose bed was I sleeping in? The guy, he said, my roommate left an hour ago, got on a plane to go to Cincinnati. And I said, whose bed was I sleeping in? And he said, oh, you'll hear about him, just like you'll hear about him. His name's Johnny Bench. So Bench left in the morning, I rolled in the afternoon. I can forevermore say I slept in Johnny Bench's bed.